Now let me give you the third thing that Sarkozy campaigned on, because this was genius. This is the kind of stuff that you look back and you just think, I don't quite know how he did it. It's like watching Michael Jordan at his peak, or watching Tiger Woods, at his peak. You think, how did this guy do this? He said, I want you to think about a politician campaigning on this in Michigan. He said, the French will have to work harder. This is his third pledge, okay? You can come to France, but you have to learn to be French. I will enforce the law. The French will have, this was the core of his campaign. But he did two things that were just brilliant. First was, he understood Margaret Thatcher's rule. First, you win the argument. Then you win the vote. And I'll tell you how you won the argument. And second, you want to make it as desirable as possible. Again, this is, a lot of conservatives get up every day and they go, this is going to involve real pain. Well, try sometime to explain to McDonald's or Walmart, we have this great new ad campaign. Come to Walmart and be miserable. I mean, only right-wing politicians come up with this stuff. The duty of a leader is to figure out a way to... Now, you may occasionally be trapped in a situation as FDR was after World War II, during World War II, in which I wrote about in Pearl Harbor, where, when you get attacked by the Japanese, then you got to fight a war. But you don't, as a general rule, go out and say, let me find a way to make you miserable. I'd like you to elect me. So how do you take working harder when the argument... First, he said, fact. And facts matter. You go back and read the Reagan speeches. They are filled with facts. But they're woven into stories, and the language is beautiful. But you're learning a ton when Reagan spoke. Fact. This is all in testimony. Before Margaret Thatcher, the French economy was 25% bigger than the British economy. Today, the British economy is 10% bigger than the French economy. Today, 50,000 young Frenchmen and Frenchwomen earn a living in London because there are better jobs in London than Paris. Then he then said to people, if we don't change, you're going to lose purchasing power. When you lose purchasing power, we're going to lose tax revenue. When we lose tax revenue, we can't sustain the pensions, and we can't sustain the health system. So if you want to sustain the pensions, and I would add, in places like Michigan, education system, teachers' health care, teachers' pensions, you can't, we don't have the jobs, and we don't have the revenue, this isn't going to last either. And people thought about it, and they decided he was right. So he won the argument. But here's what he proposed. This is what was, I thought, genius. He said, I'm not going to try to change the 35-hour work week. That would cause cultural civil war. It is a totem of the left. I understand. It's fine, we'll keep it. But if you are willing to work overtime, it'll be tax-free. So I will propose a bill where there will be no taxes. Notice what he just set up. Here's the fight. I favor, back to world that works, world that fails, right? I favor encouraging you to work, rewarding you to work, incentivizing work, so you get more take-home money. And you're getting more take-home money on behalf of France. It's very close to what Reagan did in 1980 with tax cuts, where he said, it is your duty to accept a tax cut to help the American economy. And people said, well, I personally didn't need the money, but as a good American, I couldn't get it. Meanwhile, look what he's done to the left. The left is against work, discourages work, doesn't want you to have the money, and it's worse for France. So he has set up this beautiful fight. So he wins. And Plus and I were in Berlin when he won, and we were watching on European media. One last story. But it relates so directly to the cultural crisis you're in Michigan and the need to fundamentally rethink Michigan and to get back to the Michigan that creates jobs and invents the future and builds better products and competes cheerfully in the world market, because if we organize it right, we can take on China, we can take on India, we can take on Japan, we can take on Germany. But we got to get our act together if we're going to beat their act. We can't just complain about their act. So here's the last thing that happened. He gets elected, spends one day appointing a prime minister and key people, decides to take a 3-day vacation, flies down to Malta, and he gets on the yacht of a French billionaire. And this is, I mean, the real thing. The big enough yacht that it has a helicopter. The French media goes crazy. The Socialist Party goes crazy. Oh my God, the president of France is humiliating the poor. How can he do this? He waits 2 full days. I'm convinced he set this up. And they just, they get to that kind of frenzy that MoveOn.org gets to if it gets to it. It's the kind of, I must be in a frenzy, I'm awake kind of thing. And he calls a press conference. And he says, let me explain. They're exactly right. I was on the yacht of a French billionaire who became a billionaire by creating 40,000 jobs in France. And I love jobs in France. And I intend to go and visit and be positive with anybody who creates jobs in France, because I value having jobs for the French. Now, my opponents love unemployment. And they promise to keep you unemployed. And so, if you like jobs, I'm happy to work with you. If you love unemployment, you should go see them. 2 weeks ago, he became the first French president in history to speak to the French business organization. Never before done. Because historically, French presidents were too aloof to deal with anything as mundane as business. I'll close with this, but I want to ask you to help us. I want to ask you to really think seriously about American solutions and what Michigan solutions would be like, and how we create a better Detroit, how we create a better Lansing, how we create new jobs, how we create a better future. But I just want to close with this thought, because I think this is at the heart of what Sarkozy's trying to do and the heart of what we're trying to do. We are inevitably in the 21st century. China and India are facts, they're not problems. We either adopt policies that maximize jobs in America, or we adopt policies that kill jobs in America. We either adopt policies that encourage our children to learn, or we adopt policies that cripple our children because they don't have a chance to learn. It is this straightforward. The system we currently have in Washington, in Lansing, and in Detroit is not capable of being successful in the 21st century. And our generation, we care about our children and our grandchildren. Clifton and I have 2 grandchildren, Maggie, who will be 8 in October, and Robert, who just turned 6. So if you care about your children and your grandchildren, then our generation has to be committed to real change, because only with real change will we be able to give our children and grandchildren the kind of prosperity, the kind of safety, and the kind of freedom that our parents worked and fought to give us. And with your help, that's what we're